Once again I welcome you to our channel Geo Savvy. Let's begin. Who is right and who is wrong between Israel and Palestine? And what is the dispute between them? This topic is one of the most controversial topics in the world, and this truth you need to know. And I also know that some of you support Israel and some support Palestine. Today you will know this fact. There was no conflict in Palestine before World War I. Palestine had a large Muslim population and Christians and Jews also lived happily with them. At that time, this entire area was under the control of the Ottoman Empire. By looking at this map, it is known that the Ottoman Empire was spread from Europe to North Africa and a large part of the Middle East. There were some Arab leaders who were quite fed up with the Ottoman Empire. Arab leaders wanted to be free from the Ottoman Empire, and to achieve this goal, they secretly met with the British, the enemies of the Ottoman Empire. The British promised them that if you help us against the Ottoman Empire, we will give you a separate country in return. A similar promise was made by the British to the Jews in Europe. Jews have been such a people before, who had no abode in the world. That is, they had no country. The Jews in Europe were already facing a lot of difficulties and were looked upon with hatred. And in some places they were even killed. But why was this done to them? There is a religious conflict behind it. For some centuries Christians believed in this. It was the Jews who caused the death of Jesus Christ. Just because of this main conflict, Christians in Europe did not tolerate Jews. The network of the Jewish community around the world is as strong as it is today. They call the moment of seeking their own separate country in Palestine as Zionism. It was started in 1869 by Jewish political activist Theodor Herzl. He wrote a book which has been translated into English as Jewish State. In this book, he wrote that if the Jews in Europe want to live a peaceful life, they have to make their own country in Palestine. In the beginning, some Jews were against him. They used to say that why should we leave our homeland because of anti-Semitism? But soon this moment turned political. Jews from all over the world started coming to Palestine. They began to be financially supported by their own community and were given money to set up businesses and factories there. The British government had promised the European Jews that they would give them the opportunity to create their own country in Palestine. In 1971, when World War I was going on, in which the Ottoman Empire was badly defeated, if we go back a little, on November 2, 1917, the British government decided that the Jews went to Palestine and made their own country. The Jews were assured that the British government would fully support them in this work, and he also said that Muslims already living in Palestine will not be harmed. A month later, British soldiers came and captured Palestine and ended the 400-year rule of the Ottoman Empire. Then the question is, what did the British government want to get in return by giving Jews their own country? In fact, the British needed only one thing, that of a state after the Ottoman Empire that could support them in the future. So they promised the Jews a separate country. But in return, a promise was taken from the Jews that they would not leave the side of the British after creating their own country. Palestine came under British rule in World War I. They tried hard to establish a Jewish colony there and then they succeeded. But the Palestinian Arabs living in Palestine believed that Britain never thought about our independence. In the eyes of the Arabs of Palestine, the law made by Great Britain for the Jews was quite good. Then a few days later, the series of Jews from all over the world began to come to Palestine. They built their schools there, opened factories, and with the help of Britishers, they also created a small army called Haganah. The Palestinian Arabs had no choice but to think that the British were doing nothing for our freedom but giving our land to others. For some years they put up with it. In 1939, the Arabs of Palestine began to raise their voice, but speaking out against the British was simply disobedience, and Palestinian Arabs were severely punished for doing so. Some were imprisoned and some were expelled from Palestine and some were executed. But the Palestinians still did not stop. Then the British government created a appeal commission to solve this problem. This commission came up with a solution in Palestine that Palestine should be divided into two parts. This solution solution was also not accepted by the Arabs of Palestine, because in reality the Arabs of Palestine did not want their homeland to be divided into two parts. Then, after all these cases in Palestine, the newly arrived Jews were banned, and Jews who were already in Palestine were prevented from buying Arab lands. It was also decided that within the next 10 years Palestine would be made an independent state, and Palestine would also be the country of the Jews. The Palestinians were not happy with this decision of the British government. Then the Palestinians started attacking the British government, in which some local Palestinians were also killed. This war continued for several months, and then a few days later World War II began. Then Hitler also killed 6 million Jews in Europe. This event is called the Holocaust. Between 1941 and 1945, 66% of the Jews living in Europe were killed by Hitler. The surviving Jews had no choice but to go to Palestine, because firstly, it was a holy place for them, and secondly, there was already a Jewish community living there. Despite the ban of the British, they started moving towards Palestine, but the conditions in Palestine were not good either. There too, the Palestinians were fighting the British. After World War II, the British retired, and they no longer had the courage to fight. He decided to leave here in 1947. Then the British put this whole issue on the United Nations. The United Nations saw the situation in Palestine. He announced the partition of Palestine into two parts. There were 1,181,000 Muslims, 630,000 Jews, and 143,000 Christians in Palestine, but they gave 55% of Palestine to the Jews, and they gave 45% to the Muslims. But Palestine is already the home of the Muslims, in which the number of Muslims was also high. But still, why did the United Nations do this? There's no reply yet. Behind this, the war between the Palestinian Muslims and the Jews had started. Palestinian Muslims could not compete with these Jews, because the Jews were much more powerful than the Muslims, due to which the Muslims failed. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion announced the establishment of the State of Israel. He was the first Prime Minister of Israel. In 1948, Israel's neighboring Arab countries thought of attacking Israel. These Arab countries attacked Israel. It was the world's first Arab-Israeli war, in which 5 Arab countries attacked a small country, Israel, and Israel had the support of Western countries. Because of the support, Israel defeated these Arab countries, and after a few days the war was over. After that, the place chosen by the United Nations for the Muslims of Palestine, it was also occupied by Israel, and then the West Bank is occupied by Jordan, and Egypt has control over Gaza. In 1967, Arab countries attacked Israel again, in which Israel occupied not only the West Bank but also the entire Sinai Governorate of Gaza and Egypt. Then the people of Palestine were very tired of Israel. The people of Palestine decided to create a separate country. For this purpose, they formed their own separate organization, which was named PLO, Palestine Liberation Organization. The Palestine Liberation Organization began hijacking planes and ships to reclaim their country from Israel, but they did not harm even one of them, due to which the Palestine Liberation Organization was made a terrorist by America and Israel. Some countries to the Palestine Liberation Organization, they do not believe in terrorist organization. They only believed in revolutionaries who wanted to create a mining country. In 1974, the PLO was officially recognized by the United Nations. After that, in 1979, peace talks between Israel and Egypt were successful, and then Egypt became the first Arab country which officially recognizes Israel. Because of this official recognition, Israel returned the government of the Sinai to Egypt, but then 2 years later in Egypt, the prime minister has been killed by an extremist group, because the extremist group did not want to have any kind of relationship with Israel. Because of Israel's occupation of the West Bank for so long, many Jews built homes there, but the international community objected to it because it was against the 1947 United Nations partition plan. In fact, the West Bank was reserved for Palestine, which was occupied by Israel. In 1992, peace talks between Israel and the PLO were successful. PLO leader Yasser Arafat also recognizes Israel, and Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin recognizes the PLO and recognizes that the PLO is not a terrorist organization. Meanwhile, the PLO also split. The other part of the PLO does not want Palestine to be a friend of Israel in any way. This part of the PLO is known as Hamas. On the other hand, the extremist group of Israel also goes against its prime minister and says that no compromise should be made with Palestine, but this did not harm the peace talks. PLO and Israel come face to face for the first time and try to fix this issue. The problem was that the Jews who had built their homes in the West Bank by the will of Israel, that too by the will of Israel. So the Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel decided to divide the West Bank into 3 parts. Their names were A, B, C, in which A will be controlled by the Palestine Liberation Organization, B will be controlled by both the Palestine Liberation Organization and Israel, and C will be under the control of Israel only. The Palestine Liberation Organization also accepted it, but then something suddenly happened in 1995 which shattered all the peace talks. Israel's extremist group killed its own prime minister. They also did not want any Palestine Palestinians to settle near the West Bank at any cost. But Hamas often bombed Israel, which causes a lot of hatred between Israel and the Palestinian people. This war between them has been going on for 100 years. When Hamas attacked Israel in 2021, it also failed. But Hamas attacked Israel again on October 7, 2023, and that war is still ongoing. Hamas fired more than 500 rockets in this war. Israel was no less in this war. It in turn destroyed the whole of Gaza. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu killed many people living there, and Benjamin Netanyahu killed many children too. What is the fault of the people in this war? People are being killed for no reason. I want to ask you which country you support in these two countries. Please tell me in the comments, and also tell me on which topic I should make the next video. Please subscribe my channel. If you like the video, please like. I have full confidence in my audience that they will definitely subscribe to my channel.